J.D. Vance is an embarrassment to the law school that I attended. But the fact of the matter is he's telling us something that we should have already known. And last week I said it. They are not going to obey court orders.
George Conway didn't raise his voice. He raised the stakes. J.D. Vance is an embarrassment to the law school that I attended, he said. Dry, direct, devastating. No insult, no punchline. Just the kind of academic disowning that hits harder than a roast. And then, like a lawyer dictating a eulogy into a federal mic, Conway didn't flinch. He reminded the panel and the country that last week he called it. This crowd isn't here to govern. They're here to ignore court orders, redraw Article 1 with a Sharpie, and pretend statutory law is more of a suggestion. The man didn't blink. He just laid it out like the syllabus for America's constitutional collapse. Read it now, or read it in contempt proceedings. The studio didn't gasp, but the silence practically high-fived itself. Conway wasn't there to dunk. He was there to deliver last rites to legal precedent, one clause at a time. He didn't say they're stretching executive power. He said they're pulling it like taffy and daring the judiciary to stop them. Forget performative. This was predictive. And Vance, he wasn't scorched. He was notarized as part of the problem. Because when George Conway starts citing constitutional violations like he's reading Yelp reviews, it's not a clapback. It's a prophecy with bar exam citations. And the syllabus? Vance is already on page 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which donut, though?
Just whatever makes sense. No pickles. Hold the pickles.
J.D. Vance on SNL tries to order a donut like he's never encountered language or food. He stares at the cashier with the panicked focus of someone disarming a bomb labeled basic human interaction, mumbling about whatever makes sense, and, inexplicably, no pickles. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this and also leave a like. It's not just awkward, it's a full-body cringe disguised as a sentence. His face screams conviction, but his mouth is clearly freelancing. One blink, a micro cringe, and boom. Out comes a phrase so scrambled it could be printed on a decorative pillow from a failed Etsy shop. This isn't oratory, it's word cosplay. You're watching a vibes-only TEDx hosted inside a Cracker Barrel. Every syllable feels like it was assembled by a think tank intern who mistook gibberish for gravitas. And somewhere off-screen, George Conway doesn't even bother to clap back. He just raises an eyebrow, telepathically, and begins filing mental exhibits for the prosecution. Because JD isn't ordering a donut, he's fogging up the courtroom of public sanity. And Conway? He audits that fog like he charges by the hour. Because long before he became JD's silent nemesis, Conway found himself in an even stranger war. One that started in a Manhattan skyscraper and ended in Trump world.
I get this phone call in my office, and my secretary peers in and says, Donald Trump is on the line. I say, oh, yeah, Donald Trump. And I answer the phone.
George Conway didn't meet Donald Trump at a gala or a GOP fundraiser. He met him through a condo war. It all started at Trump World Tower, a building that claimed to have 90 floors, but actually had 72, because numbers are just suggestions in Trump math. George thought he bought an apartment on the 84th floor. Turns out it was really the 65th. Classic. One day, the residents tried to kick Trump's management company off the board, fearing their building would turn into a gold-plated circus. George joined the resistance. They won. The next day, his secretary peeks in. Donald Trump is on the line. George assumes it's a prank until he hears, "You have an amazing voice. What kind of law do you practice?" Trump then asks him to join the condo board. George, being sane, says no. But his wife, Kellyanne, "You have to do it." And when George declines again, she volunteers. Just like that, he accidentally launched her into Trump world. Forget politics. The real origin story of MAGA madness began in a Manhattan elevator with angry neighbors and leaky faucets. And Conway? He just wanted a quiet place to live, not a front row seat to the apocalypse. And just when you thought this was all backstory, J.D. Vance opened his mouth and rewrote the glossary of embarrassment.
Congratulations, Commissar. You've got the zoo portfolio. Yeah, it's absurd, and it's un-American. And I don't think most people like this. Directing Vice President J.D. Vance to crack down on the Smithsonian Institution by removing improper ideology from its museums, education and research centers, and the zoo.
J.D. Vance gets asked to define woke, and what follows isn't an answer. It's interpretive jazz for the verbally overwhelmed. It's when people, force stuff, he offers, like someone trying to freestyle their way through a spelling bee in a blackout. No examples, no point, just an avalanche of ellipses and secondhand confusion. This isn't dog whistle politics, it's kazoo rhetoric and khakis. You can practically see his synapses loading like a YouTube ad on dial-up. It's not that he fumbled the definition, it's that he invented a new genre of speech, spiritual buffering. And now, as a reward for that performance, JD's been handed the most prestigious post in authoritarian theater, ideological zoo commissar. Not a joke. Trump signed an executive order directing him to scrub improper ideology from the Smithsonian, including the museums, the research centers, and yes, the zoo. J.D. Vance is now officially patrolling giraffes for signs of critical theory. If a meerkat even whispers about climate change, it's over. This is the part where the parody writes itself. But sadly, the paperwork is already filed. Congratulations, Commissar Vance. You've got the lemur beat. And somehow, that was just the warm-up.
So there are a lot of reasons why, if you're trying to get a deal done, or you're an investment banker, or you're a private equity firm, you might hesitate to hire a law firm that Trump has targeted.
George Conway didn't yell. He sighed like a man watching someone microwave a fork. The topic, J.D. Vance, Trump, and the sudden epidemic of law firms melting into puddles of cowardice. Conway didn't name Vance, but the shape of the scolding fit him like an off-brand Superman cape. This isn't about profits, he said, in that tone lawyers use when they're also low-key threatening to sue your soul. This is about the rule of law. Somewhere Vance probably straightened his tie and wondered why it felt like he'd just been served a subpoena via podcast. Conway wasn't ranting. He was grieving, publicly, over Big Law's spine inventory running on fumes. Paul Weiss had folded. Wilkie had buckled. Meanwhile, Conway sounded like a man who had spent 30 years building a legal cathedral only to see Vance and friends hosting a kegger inside. And just when it felt like he might finally throw a punch, Conway hit harder. This is extortion. Grotesque extortion. The panel froze like someone had said Voldemort in Latin. Vance wasn't the architect of the collapse, but he was already offering guided tours. And in the next room, he found a crowd ready to cheer him on.
On this field, at this exact spot nearly 3 months ago, we thought President Trump was going to lose his life.
J.D. Vance grabbed the mic like he just won Best Suck-Up at a convention for political shapeshifters. The suit fit. The hands were trained. The smile? Corporate. He thanked Donald Trump like a man giving a speech at his own hostage video. Earnest, polished, and dead inside. He spoke of leadership with the warmth of an auto-reply email. Every word smelled like cue cards and last chances. This wasn't a rally. It was a LinkedIn endorsement gone rogue. Each line was microwaved patriotism, pre-chewed and flavorless, like someone ran Reagan quotes through ChatGPT and didn't check the output. Vance didn't look moved. He looked managed, like a guy who trashed the brand and now wears the merch out of guilt. The crowd clapped like they were waiting for a real speaker. And Conway didn't flinch. He probably watched from his couch, sipped some Cabernet, and whispered, "Oh, honey." Because if that was fire, we're one press release away from campaign speeches by PowerPoint avatars. And if that felt stiff, just wait. There's a hug coming, and JD's already prepping the eye contact.
If the FBI serves you with a search warrant, don't hide the documents, and don't lie about it, and don't have your lawyers lie about it. This isn't that hard. Donald Trump is not the victim here.
George Conway didn't even need to say Trump's name. He just described him so precisely you could hear Trump flinch through the TV. With surgical sarcasm, Conway listed the Trumpian sins like he was checking off his moral to-do list. Lie, deflect, pay off porn stars, hide the receipts, cry victim, repeat. It wasn't a rant. It was an obituary for integrity, delivered in the tone of a lawyer disgusted that another lawyer chose cosplay over constitutionalism. JD used to warn America about Trump like it was anthrax. Now he's out here treating felonies like networking opportunities. Meanwhile, Conway just leaned in, deadpan. dismantling the whole Trump redemption arc without breaking a sweat. Don't want to get indicted? Don't commit the crimes, he said, like he was explaining gravity to a flat earther. And somewhere in Ohio, JD probably nodded, thinking it was good content for a Substack. This wasn't commentary, it was a vibe check from a man who's seen real convictions, legal and moral. Trump didn't get scorched, he got quietly uninvited from relevance. Conway didn't need flames, just 4 decades of legal clarity and one perfect pause. When did selling your soul become a branding opportunity?
The greatest champion of them all, Donald J. Trump, has come to Madison Square Garden.
JD Vance steps onto the rally stage like a best man who just remembered he left his speech in the Uber. He smiles, nods, grabs the mic, and thanks Donald Trump for his leadership, with the vibrant enthusiasm of someone reading warranty terms at gunpoint. The crowd claps, but it's the kind of applause you hear at a middle school play where nobody dies. It's polite, I'm reluctant, it's ready for intermission. His lines? Fine. His suit? Passable. But the vibe? Corporate PowerPoint wrapped in red, white, and beige. It's not a rally, it's a product demo for charisma that never made it past beta. Vance doesn't stir hearts, he checks boxes. This is patriotism by template, loyalty by direct deposit. And the worst part? This was the plan. He wasn't trying to shine, he was trying to vanish politely into Trump's shadow like a sidekick in witness protection. Conway didn't have to lift a finger, he already warned us. This is what politics looks like when it gets recast as dinner theater for donors. Trump enters like a Bond villain who just bought the franchise. And JD, he claps like he just unlocked premium access to authoritarianism.
The only recourse will be for people to get out and say, we want the rule of law. We want a government that obeys the law. And that's going to require people to go out on the streets because there is no...
George Conway enters like someone who just realized the Constitution has a self-destruct button and can't wait to point it out at a dinner party. In under 10 seconds, he outlines the collapse of federal law like he's pitching a new HBO drama. Executive anarchy based on actual events. It's not a debate, it's a legal fire drill with jazz hands. The room doesn't laugh. It just freezes like someone pulled the emergency brake on a think tank elevator. And JD Vance? Probably somewhere in the frame, buffering. No sound, no resistance, just JD 404, conviction not found. Like if he speaks, the whole Wi-Fi collapses and Yale revokes his law degree on live TV. That's the dynamic. Conway plays a constitutional assassin. Calm, precise, deadly. Vance? He's the guy holding the whiteboard wondering if this counts as extra credit. And if you thought that silence was loud, just wait. Pete Buttigieg is coming. And this time, there's no glitter. Just receipts in Helvetica. And just when you thought Conway had closed the file, he delivers one last footnote. Quiet, surgical, and impossible to ignore. George Conway never yelled. He never had to. While JD Vance dissolves into speeches that smell like PowerPoints with abandonment issues, Conway sharpens his eyebrow like a constitutional scalpel. This wasn't a debate. It was an audit without glitter. And if you've ever wondered what happens when the truth shows up in a suit instead of sequins, here it is. Vance folds without a single touch. Because not every takedown needs fireworks. Sometimes all it takes is one dry pause and a man who files his shade like legal precedent. And trust, JD just got archived under spiritually unserious. You must have enjoyed watching the feud between George Conway and JD Vance. But if you want to see something better, don't forget to watch our video on the feud between John Oliver and JD Vance.